everyone, if you've been following the channel for a while, you know I like to keep all my various equipment clean and organized, whether it's my vehicles, my garage. So I figured I'd talk about what I did for my shed to both keep it organized and add some security aspects to it. Some basic stats on the shed. It's a 12 by 24. I ordered from a website called mysheds.com. It's a facility out of Pennsylvania that actually builds them, and I went there and checked everything out before I actually placed the order, and I was very impressed with how they did things. So I decided to order from them, and even with the shed being full custom built with siding to match my house, they had it built and delivered in 2 weeks. Now, it doesn't always happen that quickly, but I was very impressed with how professional and quickly they were able to get the work done. So once I got the shed, I started looking at a lot of videos online about organization and setting up your shed. So I sort of took a whole bunch of video ideas and put them together and set them for basically what my needs were. On the left side of the shed, I basically put all my heavy equipment, the stuff that's going to be ground-based. It's not going to ever hang up on anything because it's just too heavy. Lawn mowers, log splitter, snow blower, things like that. And then as more equipment comes in, the stuff that's light enough to pick up, I'm going to hang on the back wall because I'm trying to utilize the space as best as possible. Because even with this shed being a 12 by 24, I'm actually starting to eat up the space very, very quickly. So one thing that I want to touch on that most people do not do is if you have electrical in your shed, which is I had this shed pre-wired for electric, if you have any battery-powered stuff like mowers or certain snow blowers or whatever it may be that runs off a battery, if you're not taking the battery off and putting it like in your house or in your garage for the winter and having a tender put on it, you need to supply some sort of electrical current to keep it topped off, because if you let it sit for a season with no power and you come back and it's dead, you're either going to destroy the battery or dramatically shorten its life. Now, like I said, I covered this in my winterizing your cars video. You should be putting a battery tender or some sort of battery charger on these things if they're sitting in your shed for the season. Now, what I do is I put an electric timer on. So this comes on for basically 30 minutes a day. It tops off the battery, and then it turns itself off, and then it's ready to go. So come springtime, when it's time to use the lawnmower again, the battery is not going to be shot, and it's going to significantly extend the life of the battery rather than having it drain all the way down in deep cycle, which is what, for the most part, destroys most batteries. Now, the back wall is where I put the majority of my handheld equipment. There's, like I said, tons of videos online, lots of good ideas, everything from fancy and expensive to cheap and basic ways to hang things up and keep things organized. You can go really as basic as putting a screw or a nail to hang something up, or really, really elaborate, like I've seen full custom made, all kinds of hangers and hooks and whatnot. So I started off at Home Depot, and what I found was they have a really good section of all kinds of various and miscellaneous hooks, hangers, basically hardware for organizing whatever it may be, garage, sheds, whatever you need. And I found that this stuff really is not expensive, and it's very modular. You can really utilize the stuff to fit your needs. So I went out and I bought a whole big bag of these, probably 20, 30 of these different types of various hooks and hangers that they have. Now, the nice thing about these is these have a plastic coating on them. So depending on what you're hanging up, it's not going to scratch anything. So I figure that's well worth it. These are less than $1 each. They have all different shapes and sizes depending on what you need. And I sort of just adapted everything to what I needed to make it work. So now I can see all my equipment. I can see the fuel level of everything. If I bump into something, it's not going to fall off. Everything is nicely secured with strong hooks. It's more than capable of holding the weight. Most of these smaller hooks are good for anywhere from 10 to 30 pounds. And if you get into some of the heavier ones, like I have my spreader on, those things are good for over 40 pounds each, so they can definitely hold up to the weight. They're very secure, and you can kind of dial them in, and you can bend them and manipulate them however you need. And for me, and pretty much most people, because this is a lot of the equipment that a lot of people have, it'll work well for you. Just a little bit of trial and error, but it ends up working out extremely well, and it helps keep things off the ground and helps keep them from getting dirty as easily. So, I mean, even this I got from the same spot in Home Depot. I put this on the bottom of the backpack blower to support the bulk of the weight, and then a hook on top just to keep it up. So one thing that I did that I quickly realized is I noticed that all my saws and my pole saw would drip bar oil. So rather than coming in here every time and finding a mess of oil on the ground, what I did was I took a couple of 2x4s with biscuit joints. I put them together and glued them. I then went and got, these are basically just your grease drip trays that you're going to have for your grill. A couple of them with a rag in there to absorb the oil, and now any oil that drips out of the saws goes in there rather than making a mess and getting all over the place. So I went on the internet and I found these because I was having a hard time finding these hangers for your helmets. Keeps them up and out of the way, keeps them from getting banged around. Another thing I got from Home Depot was these hooks for hanging up all my shovels and rakes and axes and all kinds of my yard tools. These are about $5 each. They hold 3 items. They fold up out of the way if need be. And it's something that's nice and clean and not expensive. Again, you can do wood. There's all kinds of various ways to hang things up, but I want something that was nice and clean, and I still didn't have to spend a lot of money to make it work. Again, more various hooks and hangers that I just made work for my needs. Now, as I started kind of setting things up, I had a hard time finding certain things. Now, this is really common for electric cord reels. The problem was I had 200 feet of 12-3 for some of my more high-demand electric stuff around the yard, and I couldn't really find anything that was small enough to be portable to hold all my 12-3 electric cord. So what I did was I actually got this from Northern. There's a couple websites that sell something similar to this. This started life off as a 100-foot garden hose reel, and basically what I did was I just wrapped my electric cord on. It had an adapter here for hooking up a garden hose. I just cut that off with my Dremel just to get it out of the way. Now, anywhere around my yard, I can wheel this thing anywhere I need to wheel it, and I have 200 feet of 12-3 electric cord, so I can run really high-demand stuff like my little electric chainsaw or some of the other high-demand stuff that I use. Now, I do have electric run in here. I don't have a ton of amperage run in here because I don't use this like a tool shop or a workshop. I'm not doing extensive work in here. It's just basically just maintaining my yard equipment when I need to. But I like having the power in here for the light so I can work in here at night, or I can also run some equipment. Now, the only piece of real equipment I have in here is this Husky compressor. Now, I didn't want to put a gigantic compressor in here because they're big and loud, and I didn't need something with that much capacity because I'm not really, like I said, using this as a workshop. But most people in their sheds have various things with pneumatic tires, everything from your wheelbarrow and hose reels and your mowers and snow blowers. And there's nothing worse than coming out here at the beginning of a new season and all the tires are flat and you got to drag a compressor in here to fill it up, or basically push it out with flat tires on it. So I put this nice little compressor in here for both that, and I use the air nozzle on it just for cleaning things off. After I've used my chainsaws and they're full of wood chips, I can use the air nozzle to blow that all out and keep everything nice and clean. And what's also probably the best thing about this is now it's only a 4-gallon capacity, so it does take a little bit of time to recover if you're really using it quite a bit. But one thing I like about having it in here is it's very quiet. You can stand next to this thing and talk to someone while it's running. It's incredibly quiet. I don't know what the decibels are. I want to say it's somewhere in like the 60 or so decibel range. I don't remember the exact amount, but as you can probably hear, it's very quiet. I can literally stand next to someone and have a conversation when it's running, and it's not incredibly obnoxious like most small compressors are. So I really like this guy. I got this from Home Depot too. Awesome compressor, very lightweight and portable if you ever want to take it somewhere with you. And it only draws about 8 amps, so you don't need any. If you only have a smaller breaker like I have wired in here, it's not going to pop your breakers if you have like the lights and there's something else running. It's a relatively low demand compressor, and it's nice and quiet. So awesome for what I need it for. I also built this shelf up top for holding some of the smaller stuff that I need basically when I'm working here. Got all this wood from Home Depot. Got this was a nice little finished piece of wood I got for the top. The 2x4 I cut up for the bottom pieces and just screwed them into the side. So now I have a nice little shelf. You know, nice little project to do, not too hard. But in an afternoon, I was able to build myself a nice level shelf and have all my stuff on it. You know, everything from my bar oils, the tools, and all my handheld stuff comes with extra fuel. After I put that in, I decided to add a little bit more down here. A couple of cans of spray lube, various greases, gloves, paper towels. So this is, for the most part, where I do most of my work in here. And when I'm cleaning stuff or maintaining stuff, it's nice to have all this stuff here within an arm's reach and have this nice heavy-duty tabletop here. Now, a lot of people will go ahead and build something if you're good with wood, you have a lot of wood, spare wood laying around, you want to go ahead and tackle that, that's a great idea. I bought this from Home Depot. This was $150. Sometimes you'll see it on sale for $100. It has a 500-pound capacity. I bolted it obviously to the studs in the back, and the nice part is if you push that in, and the other side as well, it folds up and lays flat against the wall. So if you're in a shed where you really need a little bit of extra room, it'll fold up and lay flat and be out of the way. So if you don't really need the platform all the time, it's something that can nicely fold up and be out of your way when you don't need it. Flashlight, tape measure, I'm always using them. One thing that I think is definitely good to have in your shed, especially if it's a little bit of a distance away from your house, is get a basic toolkit in here. You don't have to go crazy, don't spend a ton of money, but what I found was I was always doing little maintenance items in here. I was constantly having to run back and forth to the house to get a screwdriver or a ratchet or something. So a nice basic, $100 will get you a nice, simple tool set with all the basics in it, pliers, screwdrivers, wrenches, ratchets. So that's a Crescent set I got. I think I paid something like $80 for it, give or take. And that has come in incredibly handy at the when the end of the season comes and I want to drain the fuel out of the float bowls on all my equipment, because you don't want to leave fuel sitting in them over the season. I just go in there, I'll grab the wrench, drain the fuel, don't have to keep running back and forth to the house. So that's turned out to be incredibly convenient, and that gets used constantly. Threw a broom in here, and then down here a garbage can. And one thing that I would definitely recommend to a lot of people is if you have things stored in your shed that animals or rodents like to eat, like grass seed they love to eat, that stuff's expensive. And if you leave it on the ground, sitting in a bag, they're going to chew a hole through it and they're going to eat it and drag it all over the shed and make a mess. Even with a plastic garbage can, if you put it in, they'll chew through plastic. So if you have something like that that's expensive and animals like to eat it, get a metal can, because they're going to have a heck of a much harder time trying to get through a metal can than a plastic bag or even a plastic garbage can. So definitely get metal for that stuff, because grass seed and certain things that they like to eat is expensive. And then the thing I did actually here in there this week is I had some extra LED lights that I had in my garage that I removed laying around, so I figured I'd put them up here. So now I have lots of light when I'm doing my maintenance. I can see things really well, because it casts, the loft I have up top that the shed came with casts a little bit of a shadow when I'm working there, but now I got tons and tons of light for when I need to do some work in there. And then lastly, I just, again, Home Depot, couple of basic hooks. I think these hooks were like $1 each. I hung my ladder up here because I'm constantly using the ladder, whether I'm going up in the loft, up on the roof, cleaning out the gutters, or using it in various places around the yard to trim the trees or whatnot. Having a ladder in here is super, super convenient. So this is basically how I have my my shed hooked up and organized, and sort of more or less why I did this. Again, this is just like with the garage. It's about things being easily visible, convenient, and just simple and organized. Now, the other part of this video I want to talk about is everyone likes to do these videos talking about how they organize their shed, and there's a lot of really good ideas in there. But one thing that people really don't discuss is security for your shed. Most people have thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, potentially even more invested into their shed, whether, just the cost of the shed itself, all the equipment in it, and they'll put a basic padlock on there and, all right, that's good enough. Well, if you have this much invested, you should be spending at minimum a few $100s to keep your shed secured. Now, when I got the shed, it came with just a real basic, I'll show what it came with. It came with a very, very simple basic lock that you could probably, if you turned it hard enough, you're going to snap it off. So this is what it came with, this little black thing here. That's it, with a little simple lock on it. Basically anybody's going to be able to snap that off. That's nothing. That's insignificant. Now, most people put basically a simple lasp on here with a padlock. Now, you can cut that easily with a set of bolt cutters. So what I did was, again, from Home Depot, and they weren't so much more expensive than the other locks, I went out and got one of these hockey puck style locks. So these are the kinds of things you see on cities, on vans in the back of things like cities. The nice thing about this is you can't cut this with a bolt cutter. So this is going to be much more involved and much harder to cut something like this. Now, obviously, you could try to pry at it, but it's going to take a lot more time and a lot more effort. And the mount itself has carriage bolts on it. So again, you're not going to be able to unbolt these. You're going to have a much harder time attacking this. And it's basically, you're going to be spending more time, because nothing is 100% secure. There's always, with enough time and energy and equipment, you're going to be able to get through anything. But the idea here is to basically slow someone down, so they have to spend more time and make more noise trying to break into your shed. Now, I put that on there, but what I also wanted to do to strengthen and reinforce it is I put the bolts on the back with washers, but still, again, if someone pries it that hard enough, they could potentially pull the bolts through. So I basically took these 2 pieces of 1/8 inch plate steel and added both of these to the back. So again, you might be able to pry, but now you're going to take a lot more time and a lot more noise to try to pry through that to get it off. I also added a plate up top that holds the pin in a little bit better, so it secures the door a lot more from being pried at. Now on the bottom here, I just have a couple of, these are called cane bolts. These basically, when I have the door swung to 180 degrees, I just put that in the ground. It keeps the door from flapping in the wind. And the doors are only one part of the security, depending on how you actually physically have your shed set up. So I added all these extra steel plates in here and that really tough lock on the front to secure the doors themselves. The next thing is the windows. A lot of people like to have windows on their shed, makes it look good, adds a lot of natural light. Windows are a great idea to have in a shed. I really like having these windows on there. Problem is, windows are really easy to attack. So you can do window bars, which is at a minimum what you should be doing, but I was looking at some window bars, but they really didn't fit the way that I wanted them to. So essentially what I did is, again, went to Home Depot in their hardware department, and I got these nice steel threaded rods. I got 6 of them and put 3 on each window, and they all line up with the parts of the window. So the idea here now is you can't see them from the outside, so it doesn't hurt the aesthetics of the shed. But if someone is not going to be able to easily just break the window and jump right through and get inside the shed, now they have to get through all these steel rods, and I put nuts and bolts on the back of them and lock them into each other. So I think it probably cost me around $30 or so for all 6 steel rods, this side and the other side, with the bolts. You know, a couple hours worth of work. You know, I just had to basically just drill holes in the side and slide them in, lock them down. And now if someone wants to try to break in, it's going to be a lot more effort. It's going to be considerably harder to try to break in now. Now, nothing is 100% secure. Again, like I said, with enough time and effort and energy, you can get through anything, no matter how much reinforcement, no matter how strong. Nothing is 100% secure. But again, the idea here is to slow somebody down, to deter them. You know, people usually want to break into something they can get in and out really quick. You know, they don't want to spend time prying, cutting, spending more time, more vulnerable, making more noise, making it more obvious that they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing. So that's what the idea of all this stuff is. If someone does try to break in here, this is going to slow them down significantly because they're not going to be expecting something like this when they try to break into a shed. And I'm trying to protect all my expensive equipment that I have in here. So I definitely wanted to touch that in the video because that's just like people are happy to spend tons and tons of money in their sheds. An organization and equipment, you should be spending at least a few $100s. This is probably only about $100 or so I spent to add security, and it has significantly upped the safety and security of this shed. A few hours of work, a few $100, and all this extra metal now means that this shed is considerably more secure. So I hope this was a really good idea, as some really good ideas for most people, so they can both keep their shed organized and keep all their expensive equipment safe. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.